In this segment, Stephanie Miller welcomes Charlie Pierce to the show. Together, the two look at what we should really take away from Iowa and what we should expect in New Hampshire. Here's Stephanie.
Charlie, you tweeted no more Vivek. We haven't even heard from him on the Illuminati and the reptilians. We're being cheated out of our crazy rigged. Aw, just with all that Ramaswamy momentum.
Yeah.
Bye-bye.
Yeah, I was hoping we'd get a full dose of it up here over the next week or so before they vote in New Hampshire. But he has decided to go rest on his piles of money.
Don't you love the Black Knight quality of Nikki Haley saying it's a two-person race now?
That was a great speech. I love that. I finished third, but I'm the people's choice.
I know. Well, you said Nikki Haley is the new. Nikki Haley's new theme is that Trump and Biden are more alike than different. This, I presume, is her getting tough. I mean, I don't even know what to say. I think, I agree, Charlie, with a lot of the pundits talking about this is not good news for the Republican Party, what happened. What was your breakdown of last night?
My breakdown was the whole thing was a farce, and I watched football.
Yeah.
That was my breakdown. My breakdown was I was very impressed by Baker Mayfield and the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. No, I mean, this was as foregone a conclusion as ever was.
Right.
It proves nothing.
Yeah, the suspense of the 30 minutes before we knew, right?
Well, yeah, I mean, what they called it? They called the thing. People are still waiting to get into the polling places.
I know. You said, vote for me, says the third place finisher in Iowa, and I'll win in a landslide, and then I'll do great things because I will sweep in massive congressional majorities. So saith the third place finisher in Iowa. Bless her heart.
Yeah, I wanted to do a little Southern thing for Nikki, just so she'd feel at home. A little bless her heart.
Yeah, right.
No, I mean it's a substantial. Two things we knew before the thing started yesterday. Number one, we knew who was going to win, and number two, we knew that a substantial portion of the Republican Party is completely insane.
Right.
Which was witnessed by some of those amazing, like outside the caucus interviews that were done over the last couple of weeks.
Oh, yeah. No, I mean, that part is depressing until you realize what a tiny sliver of the population we're watching. I mean, so I don't know if you're going to be in New Hampshire, but so Haley's ahead of DeSantis there, right? But they're both 30 points behind Donald Trump, right?
That's right. And unlike 2016 and to a lesser extent 2020, but unlike 2016, somebody in the Trump organization has learned how to organize.
Yeah.
I mean, you don't do, even with awful weather, you don't do what he did in Iowa without running a field operation.
Yeah.
Right. Which he barely had at the beginning in 2016. I mean, on primary day in New Hampshire, his Manchester headquarters were empty in 2016. Yeah. There was nobody there. There were no signs. There was no stuff. There was no merch. It was just an empty storefront.
And
with a sign in the window.
Put it in perspective, last night the lowest turnout caucus in a quarter century, about 110,000 people participated out of 2.5 million. 4% of Iowans voted, and of those, Trump lost 49% of the votes. So, I think it was, Chris, play that again for Charlie. 20, Governor Pritzker.
Okay.
Get your reaction on that.
Almost half of the base of the Republican Party showing up for this caucus tonight voted against Donald Trump. Think about that. I mean, this is the most famous Republican. He's the guy who, basically built the modern Republican Party, the MAGA Republican Party that Democrats are running against. And half the people in that party didn't vote for Donald Trump.
Yeah, Charlie, your take?
That's a bit. I think Governor Pritzker, is whistling past the substantial graveyard because of the people who didn't vote for him in Iowa, 99.9% of them are going to vote for him in the fall. I mean, this was not an internal rebellion in the Republican Party that they split their votes among three other losers.
Chris, give me Rachel Maddow, cut 19, as you call her kindly, Doc Maddow. Just want to get your reaction on this factor, though.
In this incredibly conservative electorate, where Trump is going to run away with
Correct.
the Iowa caucuses by a mile and then some, still a third of that electorate says if he's convicted, they're going to nominate him nationwide?
Yeah.
When even a third of Iowa caucus goers say no, he can't be president if he's convicted? I'm sorry, but he's going to be convicted.
Well, Rachel, there's overwhelming evidence in several of these cases. So I can't say what's going to happen, but there's very strong evidence.
I cannot.
Go ahead.
He's going to be convicted.
All right.
What do you make of that factor, Charlie?
I make of the fact that 2/3 of the Iowa caucus voters would vote for him if he was convicted. And
I can't.
And a huge chunk of the Republican Party would elsewhere. I mean, the polling data shows that. I mean, I would absolutely refuse to draw any conclusions from that farce last night. I don't think it tells us anything.
Yeah.
First of all, it's an arcane formula to run a presidential election. Second of all, it's damn Iowa, with where the Christian right and angry white people run the show. And third of all, the weather was lousy.
Yeah.
I mean, what are you going to tell? 100,000 people in Iowa or whatever are going to tell you something determinative about a presidential election next November? That's crazy.
Yeah. And also, they're the Chris Lavoie of caucuses. They're always wrong.
That's true. They are always wrong. They are always wrong, and people persist in covering them like they're the Cuban Missile Crisis every year.
Let's talk about, you retweeted Liz Cheney speaks about Trump at Ebenezer Baptist Church. A great lie is doing its work, poisoning the bloodstream of our democracy. He threatens the foundations of our nation and everything Dr. King persevered to save. And you said her evil old man voted against the Martin Luther King holiday. She has voted against any reform attacking voter suppression. I remain rather nauseated of the thought of her in that pulpit. I know, and I think someone else tweeted at you, the enemy of my enemy is my friend. But I know you are of a different persuasion on that.
Well, there are certain sacred places where you have to be careful who you allow. So, I mean, this is like having Wayne LaPierre speak at Mother Emanuel.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah.
That was a funny joke that fell dead in the water. And I will go so far with, as I think I said to you before, yes, it's all hands on deck, but that doesn't mean all hands are on the bridge.
Right. Yeah. By the way, speaking of, I saved for you the Charlie Kirk story. Charlie Kirk finally launched the campaign against Martin Luther King Jr. and the Civil Rights Act yesterday, Martin Luther King Day. You said he intends to discredit Dr. King and the Civil Rights Act of 1964. Perhaps the job of being the national spokesman for cholera was already filled.
Or cholera.
Cholera, right? Whatever. Yeah, I mean, Charlie. Of course, this was mocked by the left and the right because they're just trolls, right? I mean, it's just how can we piss off the most people on Martin Luther King Day?
Well, I mean, they're trolls with a lot of money behind them.